Good evening. Good evening, everyone. I'm Amy Bell, the Executive Director of the Darien Community Association. Welcome to the DCA and the second event in the 6th year of our Darien Neighbors Global Players Speaker Series. By being a part of our audience tonight, whether you're here in person or watching via live stream, you are helping to support the mission of the DCA, our fundraising efforts, and this year, our 100th anniversary. Thank you. In celebration of this anniversary, we compiled a list, a very unbiased list, I might add, of 100 things to love about the DCA. We have a few samples out on your tables, and I thought I would share a couple of examples with you. Reason number 2 is our prize-winning authors at our Book Talks with Barrett bookstore, such as our April 12th event we have coming up with Mary Louise Kelly of NPR. Reason number 50 is 81 years of awarding need-based college scholarships at Darien High School to graduates of Darien High School. Reason number 33, the thrill of the hunt at the DCA thrift shop. You never know what you might find. And speaking of the hunt, reason number 40 is the DCA's beloved Easter egg hunt on our front lawn, coming up on April 7th with 3,000 eggs snatched up in about 10 seconds. Reason number 63 is the DCA Bird Sanctuary and Nature Trail here on our Middlesex Road property. It provides a great outdoor classroom, especially at this time of year for preschool groups. And reason number 12 is this beautiful 15,000 square foot Regency-style mansion on the National Register of Historic Places. We encourage you to browse through the flyer and find your reasons to love the DCA. I'd like to say a few thank yous now. Our production team in the back, Jeff DeMayo, Audio Visual Services, and our live stream partner, DAF Media, and their Darien High School student volunteers and adult leaders. DAF Media is a joint venture between the Darien Foundation and the Darien Athletic Foundation, and just another really great community organization. And a special thank you to the generous sponsors, local businesses and organizations who are sponsoring our series. Our platinum sponsor is the John M. Glover Insurance Agency. Our silver sponsors are A Little Something White Bridal Couture, Connecticut Community Bank, and Janine Tenkin with Houlihan Lawrence. And our bronze sponsors are David Harvey Jewelers, Hollow Tree Self-Storage, Nancy Dock with Brown Harris Stevens, and Holly and David Hawes with Compass Connecticut. PG Properties, and the V20 Group, LLC. Thank you to all of them. We have a short video that we'd like to share from our platinum sponsor, John M. Glover.
Before there was professional football, fast food restaurants, and megastores, there was a John M. Glover agent at the doorstep of Connecticut's businesses and homes, shaking their clients' hands with a comforting smile. Today, on our 100th anniversary, John M. Glover has grown to have served thousands of clients the old-fashioned American way. Join us in the movement to keep business personal. Join us in the celebration of tradition and trust. At John M. Glover, we've got you covered. Before there was professional football,
personal journey of self-discovery and acceptance, Melissa and Doug founded Lifelines. Through Lifelines, they are redefining well-being. We look forward to hearing about their journey from a small children's products company, which began in Doug's parents' garage, to an iconic global toy brand, and now to wellness innovations that help support those in search of calm. Melissa and Doug will be in conversation this evening with Essie Cupp. Essie is a Darien resident and commentator who brings her distinct outlook to CNN programming and special political coverage, and who most recently hosted CNN's Essie Cupp Unfiltered, a weekly program. She is also an active advocate for mental health awareness. And I might add, she's a familiar figure on the DCA stage, having been a featured speaker in our 2020 series and graciously serving as a moderator for several other DCA events. Please welcome Melissa, Doug, and Essie.
Can I just say that we've worked with Glover Agency for a long time, and John has never once worn one of those fancy sport jackets that I saw in that video.
Busted. Well, thank you, Amy. Thank you to the DCA for having me and our guests tonight. This is always a really fun group and a fun discussion. And don't worry, I'm going to save time at the end for your questions. So be thinking as we go. As we were talking earlier, I have an 8-year-old son who learned how to make a K-cup coffee because he got your K-cup coffee toy when he was like 2. If you know what I'm talking about. And who doesn't know this iconic Connecticut company, which started in a basement and a garage and is now a worldwide enterprise with thousands of employees and products. It's a pleasure to have you guys here. I want to start with the toys, but then I really want to get into Lifelines and mental health, and like I said, we'll end with audience Q&A. So it's 1988. I'm not even born yet, just kidding. Yes, I was. Yes, I was. And you both leave corporate jobs to start a toy company. My recollection of the late 80s was like it was a great time to be in Wall Street and corporate America. Yeah. Tell me why you did that. Feels very brave. And why toys?
Well, that sounded a lot like what Melissa's mom said when we went over to the house and told her about this crazy idea. Was like, couldn't possibly get rid of me fast enough. Was her first thought, but yeah, it was a boom time for Wall Street for sure. Melissa was working at Morgan Stanley, and both of us kind of just wanted to do something with children. I mean, we grew up always in educational families. My father was an elementary school principal, my mom a guidance counselor. Melissa's family, the same thing, and we really wanted to do something with children. I think we weren't finding our full satisfaction from what we were doing, and felt like we were not finding our full meaning.
It was more dire than that.
Tell me.
Yeah, I mean, literally, like, I couldn't get out of bed each day.
Yes.
I was working in an industry that I had no business being in. And, I'm a creative at heart, but I hadn't connected with that. And I think Doug, too, is very visionary and creative and sort of was working in a very corporate setting, and over time we both began to feel kind of like flowers without sunlight and water.
Yeah.
And that we both kind of fell into a meaning crisis a little bit. Like, why are we doing this if we can't want to get out of bed each day and we don't feel like we're doing anything that really, at least for us, brought our lives meaning? So we decided to go away for one fateful weekend and went to this bed and breakfast in the Berkshires.
Lenox, Massachusetts.
Oh, yeah.
Cliffwood Inn.
And we conceived a business out of wedlock.
We literally locked the door. We said, we're not leaving until we have a business idea.
Wow.
Wasn't that exciting?
But, I mean,
And
this...
still isn't.
Listen, asking yourself, am I happy
We
in
also
this
do have
job?
6 children, so let's keep it.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
Asking yourself, am I happy doing what I'm doing, especially when you're being well paid, it's actually really brave and hard. And then saying no, and then doing something about it. You don't hear that a lot. You hear a lot of people want to do that. I'm right there with you. But there's like realities and responsibilities. And
Especially in that day and age. In that day and age, you got on the corporate track and you literally followed it to the end of your career.
Yeah.
Nobody said, I'm going to start a company and a toy company, and we don't even know what we're doing yet.
Yeah.
I never would have left if it weren't for Doug. So Doug, I was so risk averse and so terrified of displeasing society and my parents and the risk and all that stuff.
And I was a crazy man.
And Doug was, but I was so miserable.
Yeah.
Like I was really falling into a depression. He was like, we can do this. And I was like, no, we can't. And he was like, yes, we can.
That's
and
awesome.
He really encouraged me to take the leap. Thank goodness. Because I probably, well, I don't know what where I'd be now. But.
Right.
Although, as I like to say, it's probably true. We may not have had a business if it weren't for me, but it wouldn't have been any good if it weren't for Melissa.
It's a good combination, a good match. But it was not an overnight success. It was a long journey. Talk about some of the challenges and then how you stayed motivated. It's very easy to give up.
Go ahead, begin.
Well, you know, I would say the road of entrepreneurship is the hardest road ever. I mean, it is not for the faint of heart, and you know the challenges we faced. I mean, you can share some examples. I mean, we faced there wasn't a challenge we didn't face, and we started to joke, right?
Oh, the funny thing is, like, now people will come to us some days and like, oh my gosh, you started this in your garage and it turned into this great company, and they'll say, everything must have just fallen into your laps. And we're like, that is exactly what happened. We just sat there by the fax machine. Anyone know what a fax machine is? But we sat there by the fax machine and everything just came in. But no, we had, every single day was like, you know, oh my God, I can't even believe that happened today.
To the point where we started to say, after a number of years, realizing, wait a second, we're not going to ever coast. We're not going to get to the point where it's like easy. Because we kept early on, the expectation was, right, we're going to get to this point when it's just easy. We're just going to be able to sit back,
count the money,
feet up, and it's going to come in.
Still looking for it.
Yeah, no. We started to say, okay, what is it going to be this year?
Yeah.
Because we had faced pretty much everything you could imagine. Tsunamis and fires and just everything you could imagine, but...
Not just in our garage. Those weren't in our garage.
Oh, okay.
And in our relationship, no, I'm just joking.
That's when I got to know John at the insurance company.
Yeah, I get it now.
But you ask what kept us going.
Yeah.
Deductibles.
It starts with a mission.
Yeah.
It starts with something that you believe in so passionately that you are willing to go through all those horrific things to realize it. And nothing becomes more important to you. Because if your mission isn't so strong that you're willing to go through anything for it, you will quit.
So if your mission as an entrepreneur is to make a lot of money.
You'll never make it.
Right,
No.
right.
It has to be something
has to be
that
purpose-driven.
transcends money.
We mentor a lot of entrepreneurs now. We have a program at Duke where we mentor a lot of entrepreneurs, and if anyone ever begins with the exit plan or the way it's going to make money, we know that it's doomed. But
because money is extrinsic. It's only done for the reward.
and it won't pull you through the really
hard times.
Yeah, it won't.
And it has no
correct.
meaning. You lose the allure for that very quickly. So it has to be something that transcends all extrinsic rewards and holds you, through all that time. And I can say, our mission today is the exact same as it was 34 years ago, literally.
Yeah, in 1988, you wouldn't have said, I want to make money. We will make educational wooden puzzles.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Yeah, we never ever thought about the money. And in fact, every decision we made wasn't for the money. We always made the decision for our mission, for our products, for our employees, and never for the money. And that's why it ultimately, was profitable, because we always and never lost sight of that.
And you kept going despite the challenges.
We kept going because we believed in open-ended play.
Oh, we believe we had to do
And
this.
we believed that open-ended play is a catalyst to unleash a child's imagination and sense of wonder, and that childhood was disappearing,
Yes.
and that it was sort of our obligation and our duty to fight tooth and nail to keep it alive.
Well, and on that exact point, I mean, I'm a parent, I know all too well how hard it is to compete with screens and video games and, electronics. So your low-tech toys that kids actually like to play with are really important. Do you think the company took a rise because, or do you think as technology took a rise over the past 2-3 decades, did that bolster the need for these products? All this other digital noise and competition?
I think it made it harder.
Well, all the years we always had people come up to us and tell us that the only path in our category would be technology. CEO of largest toy company out there. So lovingly patted us on the heads and told us we'd be out of business if we didn't take all of our products and put them onto apps. But for us, it was, as Melissa said, it was all mission driven. And we actually said at one point, great, so be it. If this leads to bankruptcy, we haven't tried that yet, so that'll be interesting. And because it was too important to us, because we knew. And I would say the pendulum did swing, though, but it was about halfway through. And I think that's where people started to say, wait a second, if you have a 3-year-old and you're putting them in front of technology all day long, and 60 Minutes did a episode about 5 years ago, and they had a woman on from the National Institute of Health, and she actually was showing results of studies they had done where they had put children through MRI machines and or CAT scan, and they were showing the development of the brain with those who had been overexposed and spent all their childhood doing nothing but technology, and those who hadn't. And I think the world started to realize that there's something to be said, and this was Melissa's premise from the beginning, and you'll hear her say it over and over again, open-ended play. That's really, that is the concept of Melissa and Doug. When we started in 1988, no one had any idea what we were talking about. But so yeah, it was an uphill fight for sure.
But I liked it. It was because when you have that as your allure for kids and your challenge, you have to make some toys and it changed the way we designed. We started before technology, we designed very simple toys. They had some pizzazz, but not a lot. And once technology came into play...
When you dropped them, they made sound on the floor, right?
But once technology came in, and that's what I was competing against, like I had to add some more sizzle.
Some zhuzh.
Some zhuzh, some low-tech, really exciting ways to captivate kids' attention, and I liked it. I like having that resistance and the challenge.
To adapt.
It makes it fun, and it makes it more difficult to really see the light, and it was more of a challenge.
Well, listen, we have a lot of small business owners and entrepreneurs in this town. Some are in this room, I'm sure. If you had advice to give, I know, as you said, you mentor students, to grow a business, to start and grow a business, what is some of the first pieces of advice you'd give someone?
Marry someone a lot smarter than you. I would begin there. And then just hang on for dear life. But no, I think as Melissa said, you have to have a mission and a passion at the heart and the soul of it, and you have to always focus on that. We always say, our company, including the new venture Lifelines, we always say with us, it's always about mission and product. And a lot of people don't think about it that way. They think about it being about whatever, sales or marketing or finance. And we always say, no. You have to make sure you have amazing product and you do things for your customers that no one else would be willing to do. You go above and beyond all the time. And you believe in it, like everything is modeled around that. I mean, we joke, I mean, our board still says, no, we want to explain to you what margin is. We still don't really necessarily know what it is, but we know that if we keep making great products and providing great service, that things will fall into place. So for me, that's been kind of the side of things that I kind of focus on is, always making sure that's at the heart and soul of what we do.
So you listed two of them. Yeah. A mission, focus on the product above all else, and do not go to step 2 until your product is so good that people are clamoring to purchase it.
And there's a reason, it's differentiated.
3 is learn to trust your intuition. Intuition is something we don't learn about because it comes from within. And I think the more you learn to listen to yourself and not get your advice from externally, the more you will make decisions that are right for the company and right for the mission.
Melissa created 10,000 products, never once did a focus group, never once read any piece of information that contained consumer insights.
But, and the 4th is to listen, not only to your inner voice, but to listen once you put the product out there. Listen to your customers. Really listen. Sometimes we become so enamored with our own stuff that we put on blinders to what other people say when they're telling us the truth, like this isn't that good or the experience isn't great, because you can keep changing a product. Every one of our products became what we call a running change, and we continually made changes with our Melissa and Doug products to improve them. I mean, you're not going to know, unfortunately, as much as you test them, you're not going to know until you put them out there. And then you're going to get responses. And most people don't want to just tell you mean things. If they're telling you that the experience wasn't great, it's because it wasn't great.
Right.
And then the 5th, I would say, is embrace failure. And when I say embrace it, I mean seek it out.
Love it. Okay.
Love it.
Okay.
Like use it as a time that you are going to get your best wisdom, insights, and lessons ever. And it means that when you do fail, you are going to have to look at it really honestly and have the courage to look at every aspect of it, because what you're going to probably find is it's not as black or white as success or failure. It was probably one aspect of it that maybe, and at Melissa and Doug, I kept behind me because I had so many product failures. Basically, someone once tried to calculate it. I was only successful about 35% of the time, and 65% of the time my products bombed. And I became so saddened by all my children who were being put out to pasture that I started to keep them behind me in my office, which was a big space. And over time, that lost children collection became about 800 toys. And I started to see something really fascinating, which was that some of the so-called failures that kept calling to me, like, bring me back to life, bring me back to life, sometimes it was simply they were a decade ahead of their time.
Right.
And literally, I could bring back the exact same product, exactly as was, a decade later, and it was a resounding success from a total failure. Other times, it was a detail on it. Maybe the packaging wasn't descriptive enough, or the pricing wasn't what it should have been. So I began to see over 3.5 decades of creating toys that it's not as black and white as success or failure. It's really, failure is just one point along the path to success.
The other thing we realized, and you mentioned a lot of business owners here, but it's so easy to talk yourself out of something, and that's something that we try never to do. We're always like, well, let's do it, let's make this, let's get it done, let's get it out there. And because if you start thinking of all the things that could go wrong, frankly, that's the same thing when we started the business in the first place. I mean, you could sit there and list all the reasons why it's not going to work, and it gets very, very easy to talk yourself out of things. So we try to keep the positive mindset that everything is possible. We will find a way, and our path has definitely not been this. Our path is this. But as long as you keep moving and keep putting a step in front of the other, you'll get there. It might take a little while, but you'll get there.
One other thing, yes, that's so true. One other thing about entrepreneurship is that most of the reason entrepreneurs succeed is because they're doing something that has never been done. So if it's something that has never been done, a lot of people, like Doug said, are going to tell you it can't be done because it has never been done. So, and if you listen to stories about entrepreneurs, you know, our entrepreneurs will always come to us and say, but I don't know anything about this.
Yeah.
And we always say, that's good. That's actually one of the criteria for success, is to know nothing about what you're doing, because when you know nothing about it, you are going to do things differently.
Bring it about differently.
Yeah.
Right? If
Yeah.
you know everything about it, you're going to follow that well-worn path, and you're just going to do it the same.
Right.
We had a head of innovation who no longer is our head of innovation, because we had a conversation once, and he kept saying, well, that can't be done, that hasn't been done, and we kept saying, well, wait, I forget, what's the definition of innovation again? Like that's the point. And then, so after we moved on from our head of innovation, we also made a new rule at our company. We said, from now on, our rules, we are never going to create any product unless at least one person says it can't be done. And that's going to be our threshold for doing it.
It's so true.
Yeah.
I would have some of our toy designers come to me and they all the time say, we can't do this. I'm sorry, we can't do this. And my line was, well, that's why when we do it, we are going to be the first ones who have ever done it. And they would like hang their head and kind of go walking on.
Right.
And we always did it. Sometimes it was a little bit differently.
Yeah.
But there was always
inventing.
a way. Maybe
Yeah.
it had to be more expensive, or maybe it was going to take 6 months longer, or maybe it was going to be a slightly different iteration. But there's always a way.
Always a way.
Well, the toy market is tough. I know, I watch Shark Tank. How do you
They won't even
deal-
invest in toy companies. Do you know that?
No, this is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like they are like, nope, too tough, too tough. How do you
tell them
deal
some
with like
stories.
competitors and cheater brands?
Wait, what?
There's some great stories about that.
I imagine there are.
It is ruthless.
Wait,
That's
this
what
is being recorded though. Can you stop every? No.
This is
We
all off the
we
record.
always joke our story should be called "It's Not Fun and Games."
Uh-huh. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, we've had all kinds of, everything, including, one of our first big trade shows with his toy fair in New York City at Javits Center. And we're there exhibiting all of our amazing products, and some of our customers started saying, oh, no, that's all right, I already saw them upstairs at your other booth. We actually don't have another booth upstairs, but we do recognize our factory owner because he's sitting in our other booth upstairs. And he said to us, well, he had a good reason. He had a good reason. We had invented all these amazing products, which at the time we did not want to sell to Walmart. He did, so he thought he'd bring our amazing products here and create a whole new market for them. And these weren't copycats. These were our products that he literally painted over our name. It was it wasn't Melissa and Doug anymore. It was Melissa and whoever. But
We weren't laughing at the time.
No.
Things like that, they take the wind. I remember I
Well,
fell
we
to my
decided
knees.
we were going to leave. We left the business.
We kind of fell to our knees. You
Yeah.
get the wind knocked out of you, and it's like you can't breathe for a little while. And things like that happened a lot. That was not just a
Our factory
one-time.
owner was threatened.
Right?
Right. Oh my
Exactly.
gosh.
Right.
Our
Exactly.
main factory, his life was threatened by
Yeah.
one of our competitors. That if he continued to make our products, he may not see tomorrow.
Oh my God.
So, being an entrepreneur, what did he do?
And our insurance rates went through the roof. And on the backs of all these problems, John built a business. But
He was like, "Yes, another problem."
yeah. In fact, we're not so sure it wasn't John who actually had threatened the.
That'd be clever.
Clever way to
That's
drum
pretty
up
funny.
business. Yeah. We need more insurance.
And we won lawsuits against every one of
Our customers.
our customers for copying our
You had-
products.
you had a
and
giant-
lots of.
yeah.
What'd you say?
You had a picture of a giant check on the wall we had gotten
a number
from,
of them.
I think it was Walmart, right?
Was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
We had-
Yeah.
They,
Thank you, Walmart.
They would, yeah, and it was erroneously. We were so out there that our factories would sell our products as their own.
Melissa
And they
would go to trade shows. Melissa went to
Sad.
trade shows overseas. She would go to a trade show in Germany, and she'd be walking the aisles, and someone would have a product like literally she designed in our kitchen.
And at least 20 booths.
And the person would be saying, "Oh yes, no, we have a designer
"Who
that."
made this?"
Yes. Yeah.
They'd say, "Oh, we have
Oh,
designers."
that's
that
wild.
So any of you thinking about going into the toy
No.
industry?
That is wild.
But I will say, that looking backward does you no good. If you focus on all the
Right.
people
That's
that are
truth.
what do you call it, nipping at your heels,
Yeah,
you will lose all your momentum. So what we started to
We didn't let
realize
that bother us,
is
yeah.
there are 3 things we can do to thwart the copiers.
Mm-hmm.
One is innovate, innovate, innovate as quickly as we can.
Those are
because-
the 3.
Right? No, that's true. That's 3 right there. Because what did Disney say? No one
Yeah,
can
no one-
copy
no one can copy as
I
fast as we can innovate.
And we really were innovators, so why not harness that and just keep, because the truth was the knockoffs were about 2 to 3 years behind us.
So I used to always say, I used to embrace it. I'd say, thank goodness, because of all of that great talent, we're actually focused on trying to innovate.
Yeah.
Now we might have a tough time.
Right.
And I just kept saying, this is amazing. All they're doing is picking up our crumbs 3 years later.
Yeah.
This is perfect, because these are smart people.
They
So
really
I was grateful that they weren't
Flattered.
innovating.
Yeah.
So that was the first. The second is distribute the heck out
Yeah.
of the products you
Yeah.
have. Get them everywhere.
Leave no openings.
And we had an incredible proprietary distribution system where we literally could sell 10,000 units a day of our products because we had so many people selling our products into retailers. So, and if they were in every retailer and as someone comes along, like, what are they going to say? Like, sorry, this really nice couple who sold it, I'm going to stop buying from them? No, they're going to just kind of look the other way. And then the third, which is maybe one of our core tenets, the most important, is make your pricing such that a knockoff can't come in. Because a knockoff, the definition of it, is really someone who basically sees room to come in at a lower price.
Right.
And can take your beautiful designs and bring them to market at a lower price. So we said, if we are the knockoff price for our products, then we will thwart a lot of people who even are thinking about copying us.
We would have people come to us at trade shows, one person in particular, and said, I tried to copy, I tried to knock up, but you guys have the knockoff pricing. And that was our strategy,
Plan,
have the
yeah.
most innovation, but also the most accessible pricing.
Yeah. So those, we started to really believe that if we focused on those 3 areas as opposed to worrying, then we would just leave them in the dust. And it really was true.
Wow.
It took our energy away from something negative and turned it to what we could control and what we were empowered to do.
Right. I want to talk about family. I get asked this a lot. How do you juggle it all? So I'm a mom. Moms know how to do that. You have 6 kids.
Doug, do you want to talk about that?
How do you manage to run a company and find quality time?
Do you want to answer?
That's not funny. She's trying to embarrass me.
You don't have an answer? Well, the myth of balance is BS. There is no such thing, and it is not easy. It's incredibly messy, and anyone who tells you it's not is telling you a fib. So the truth is you can have it all, but you're not going to feel ever that you're doing any of your things perfectly.
Right.
And you have to have no expectation about either. You have to say, I am committing myself to doing both, but I know ahead of time that I'm going to fall short if I'm trying to achieve perfection in all of them, and that is exactly how it's supposed to be.
What about, you said expectations, but what about guilt?
Yeah.
How do you deal with the guilt, you feel, when you're not at home, or when you're at home and you want to be working? How do you deal with that? That's really hard.
That's been one of the most important topics that I talk about because I had to develop a strategy for myself. Because before I developed the strategy, I always felt horrible guilt. I felt like a terrible person. But I realized very early on that I am meant to work. I've had a meaning crisis my whole life, and my meaning is derived from taking something in me and using it to impact others. And you could say I'm doing that with kids, but it's really out of my control. I need to make tangible form out of the chaos, and that is products. So I knew I needed to work. So once I accepted that I was going to need to work while raising kids, I needed to feel good about it. And I thought I need to convey the importance of it and how much I'm doing for the world, so to speak, to my children from very early on. And I started to realize that if we want our children to have meaning and purpose and goals in their life, then aren't we the role models they are following?
Right.
So if we feel guilty, if we're constantly showing that like we're conflicted and we're like, I'm sorry, I have to leave you, and we're walking out of the house sad and crying, like, what are they going to think? And what are they going to think about their lives? They're going to think, I have 4 daughters and 2 sons. What are my daughters going to think? They're going to think, I can't do it all. Look at my mom. She's every day I look at her, she looks like she's miserable. She's never able to handle it. So I started to become really empowered by that and say, I got to set, even if I don't feel that way, I got to show my kids that they can do it. So I had a talk with all of them. I talked to them about what I do and how it was my child even before they were born, and this is my passion, and I'm doing it, you know, with Doug, which is like means so much to me, and sharing every night. I would share stories about work and help them to understand what I did, and really show them that it didn't mean I didn't love them, but it meant that I had a really rich life of a lot of things. And I'm proud to say I've made every parenting mistake, and I would never give parenting advice. But the one thing I can say is all of my kids, especially my 4 daughters, are talking about how they will do both. You know, there isn't even a question that they wouldn't have something of their own while raising a family.
I like to say that I'm a better mom because I work, you know, and I think we have to talk ourselves into that sometimes as moms, but no, that's really good advice. I want to shift now, before we get to questions, to mental health, because it's really important to you. It's really important to me. And I've talked about my struggles with anxiety, and I love it when anyone else does, because that is the first step in ending the stigma, taking the silence away, giving someone permission to ask for help. And we have parents and teens, parents of teens in this room. So I think mental health is probably on everyone's mind. Melissa, talk about your journey. It started early.
Yeah, it started from probably my very first breath, because I was born sort of very, very unsettled and churning. And I think I now know that it's part of being a creative, is this highly sensitive, overly excitable personality that ponders sort of both the beauty of the world and the despair of the world simultaneously. And I always had really dark thoughts from the time I was a little toddler, and always wondered like why I was here, what the meaning of life was, why we died, and really early on sort of fell into a lot of darkness because of that. And because the world didn't want to hear it, when I let a little bit of that out, everyone was like, you're a child. Like, why are you talking about those things? Why are you thinking those things? Stop it. Go out and play. Be a child. And of course, inside I was thinking, well, I want to be able to go out like those other kids, but I'm really feeling a lot of despair right now. I hid it all. And basically, what a lot of especially women do, because I still had the desperate need to fit in and belong while feeling this horrible darkness, I repressed all of it, and I anchored to 2 things that a lot of women do: pleasing, becoming perfect, and never, you know, that this perfect person that got a lot of validation out of never saying no and doing what everyone wanted, and perfectionism, and getting my validation through racking up like perfect GPAs and A+, and those type of things. And although that is a short-term way to, you know, receive validation, ultimately that really crumbles.
Yeah. So at what age did you seek treatment?
48. Yeah.
So that was a long, painful journey of feeling maybe on your own and alone.
Sort of. I mean, the funny thing was I was denying it all myself too.
Yeah.
And sort of the persona that I had created was the real me. It was, and we had an amazing life. Like, you know, I have the best partner I could ever imagine. Like, I had this magical life, but there was something really dark and deep in there that I hadn't ever come to terms with and hadn't ever explored.
Yeah.
And that was the fact that, like, I'm a full spectrum of emotion, and a lot of my creativity comes from darkness that I had never connected to and repressed. So as I got older, I started, like, something weird started happening. I started feeling very inauthentic. and like something is wrong. And it started bubbling up to the point where I couldn't hide it anymore.
Yeah.
And it was those, when you block your true authentic self and repress it and are hiding behind, I joked that I hid behind sort of a Melissa and Doug logo and package, I'm this bright, shiny toy, when the truth is that I create out of a whole lot of darkness.
Yeah.
And I just felt like for me to be okay, I needed to share that.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad you did. And talk about Lifelines and this other mission that
Do you want
you
me to
have.
talk about that?
Go ahead.
Well, the best news is Doug and I are doing it together, which is amazing. I mean, how many people get the chance, to even form a company once with their best friend? But we're doing this twice. And Doug is giving me a huge gift this time because he is doing all the heavy lifting and letting me just do the things that I love. And he is shouldering, startups are not easy, and he is shouldering a whole lot of it. But basically it arose out of my just coming out and sharing the truth of what I was experiencing, which is called an existential meaning crisis. And a lot of that led to my writing a memoir, going on this big tour with a lot of speaking, which I'm a creative introvert. I don't go out and speak. I create through my hands. So it was really a totally different world. But what it made me realize is there are a lot of people that feel really alone.
Yeah.
And what it showed me, because I, deep within, felt that I would never be accepted as my true self, right? This dark, churning, introverted creative. And I feel like a lot of creatives, people want what we create, but they're not willing to accept us as outliers. Because if you're seeing things in your head, which I do, you're going to be weird.
Right.
I mean, you're going to talk to yourself, and you're going to have a lot of emotional ups and downs, and you're going to be quirky and a little antisocial. And I felt like there were a whole bunch of us hiding in the shadows that desperately wanted to connect but didn't know how.
Yeah.
So that was sort of the impetus for creating an ecosystem that ended up being, a lot of things. It ended up being my journey and a whole practice that I've created to be okay. Because once I accepted the full spectrum of who I was, that was only the beginning. Because now it's well, great, now I'm being authentic, but I'm having a really hard day today.
Yeah.
And what do I do to maintain my equanimity in the face of these big emotional highs and lows? So that became another book that we wrote that's coming out soon. And then we've created a whole ecosystem for folks who might be, need a community, and we have workshops. And then the most exciting part of it is you can talk about the products.
Products. So Melissa, I mean, that's Melissa's favorite thing to do. She likes to create physical products. So we have created and are in the midst of creating an incredible suite of physical products that we will be bringing out there. Melissa has one in her hands now, I see. But these are all to really help people ground themselves. And we have an incredible team of unbelievable designers, engineers, and all that. And as Melissa said, here we go again. We've got about 40 people working on that full time right now. And products are all coming to market this fall. But
and our mission is just as powerful as it was with Melissa and Doug.
Yeah.
And it really was just as authentic. That's what's so cool.
And defined, right?
And really defined.
Yeah.
so Melissa's holding, this is a grounding stone. It's on your wrist there, but this is a grounding stone, and she and it's something that you could fidget with a little bit when you're feeling a little bit getting stuck in your head a little bit, and you need to be a little bit more in your heart. And we have all sorts of things like this have come out, and this one actually opens also, and it's got a nice aroma inside as well. But as you said, and we appreciate everything that you're doing, because you've done a lot to talk about mental health and all of that, and we certainly appreciate what you've done. And I think what you said is the most important thing, is that just talking about it is so important, because you are right. I think that from my perspective, I think a lot of the issue that I think where everyone is trying to navigate through now has to do with that stigma, because there was a day when, imagine someone, there's no one here that grew up when I did, I'm getting up there, but imagine me walking in a college hallway and saying, I'm going to go see a therapist. I mean, you just, that conversation was not something that would have happened. And I think it is, the pendulum is moving now, which is good, and it's because of people like you and what you're doing. Because I think the more it is talked about, and you are right, it is the stigma, and the more people can talk about it, well, that is the first step, right? That is how you get to the solution. And by the way, I know it sounds cliche, and we all say, oh, you're not alone. And most said, oh, you're not alone. I mean, it's like, I'm the one who's alone because I'm the one that doesn't have that journey, because it is so pervasive, and it's.
He's ashamed to admit that he doesn't have anxiety.
I feel so bad for you.
Yeah, you really got it tough.
Right? Why doesn't anyone care about me and what I'm going through?
Everything's great.
Right. Everything's working out perfectly. But it's true, and it's so pervasive now, but that's the good news, because that's what you need to get through to the other side.
Totally. Every time someone comes out and talks about it. You know, it opens so many doors.
Yeah.
First, there's, do I have a problem?
Right.
Then there's, can I get help? Do I feel comfortable getting help? Then there's things like, do I feel comfortable telling my boss I need some time? Like, there's all of these markers that we're trying to get to. And you've got to go over a bunch of hurdles first to do it. So, again, so thankful that you've embarked on this journey and really bravely shared a very personal story. It's really important. Thanks. Okay, well, I want to allow all of our guests here to ask you questions. I'm sure you have a bunch. Don't be shy.
Anything goes.
I'll call on folks right here. Go ahead.
Hi.
Oh, sorry.
Tell me,
I won't call on folks.
if you've ever been asked this question before. It's a little off track, but you are known for having a house in Westport that belonged to the fabulous musical team Ashford and Simpson, which I think maybe you sold, but I've always wondered, did you meet them? Did they come over for dinner? Did they spend the night? Did they come back 2 years later to see if you changed it? Or did you just sign a piece of paper and that was it?
That's a great story.
It was never about a piece of paper. It was very personal. Melissa.
You want to tell?
Go ahead.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
So part of our agreement was that we did get to meet them because that property was so meaningful to them.
Part of the agreement. We also paid a lot.
I mean, that helps.
There was that too.
Yeah.
But that house, they had gotten married there. It was their summer place. And they had raised their 2 daughters every summer there. And I am such a fan of their music. And they had a party every July called White on Black, where they invited every noted Black American in the country there, and they performed every July 4th. And they'd invite some of the neighbors because it was so loud, so they wouldn't get in trouble.
Yeah. Some of your favorites, Maya Angelou.
Maya Angelou was there, and Denzel Washington, and I believe Oprah and Sammy Davis, like incredible. So when we bought it, we met them under, so we said we wanted to meet them. They came out and we met them under this like 100-year-old apple tree. And they told us the most amazing story, that they were sitting under that apple tree with Maya Angelou, and she looked out. There was this big sort of field, and Nicholas said, look at this beautiful field, Maya. And she said, Nicholas, that is not a field, that is a meadow. Oh. And they ended up calling their place Meadow Song because they said it was the inspiration for all their songs. And they wrote Ain't No Mountain High, I'm Every Woman, Solid as a, like some of the most iconic songs. So we met him, and about 1.5 years later, he passed away. So Valerie's still alive, but we were so honored to have met him.
That's a great story. Good question.
It's a great story.
I'm not choosing. Don't look at me.
Is this on? Yeah. Thank you so much for
Are we
sharing.
going to stay in the category of house questions?
No, I wanted to follow up on the Lifelines concept. And you mentioned, obviously, it goes for everybody, but what are you thinking about children? Because this crisis of loneliness is certainly in our children, and you guys are so close to that segment that I wanted to.
It's really rough with children. We're very good friends with Mark, the CEO of the American Academy of Pediatrics, a very good friend of mine, a dear person, and sadly said to me a few months ago, that wasn't the pandemic. The pandemic is coming. And it's been really, really, really rough times for children. And I think there's a lot, and it all has to happen, starting with at the family level and in the support systems and in the community. But no doubt about it, we're speaking with some folks at the McLean Hospital at Harvard, and they sadly said that they can't expand fast enough in their psychiatric, in their children specifically. So, yeah, you're right. It's.
But Lifeline's one of our first partners for our products is Barnes & Noble College. And we believe college students is one of our demographics that we really are aiming at, because there is a crisis in colleges now from all the helicopter parenting. When these kids go to college, they're really falling into a lot of anxiety over just life. And life hitting them really hard for the first time. So a lot of our tools, our tools are sensory aids that really stimulate your sensory neurons in your vagus nerve, which gets you from fight or flight to rest and relax. So I think we, in our practice, which will be part of that, really includes a lot of these sensory aids that you can do without sensory aids. You can breathe and you can do a lot of, that type of thing too, but the tools make it easier.
But as Essie said, I think the good news about this is because of people talking about it, I think that is one of the things that is going to help. I think we're going to get to the other side at a much accelerated pace than we otherwise would have if we were kind of keeping it hidden away in the closet. And that is the good thing about bringing it out and having open discussions. I know even as we talk with some of our children, and they talk about how commonly this is discussed now on college campuses and the support networks that are beyond anything that we had ever seen before. I mean, it's not even close. So we feel good about, although it's at a tough spot, we feel good about where it's heading.
And just as a parent, sometimes when we're looking at our kids, we think, well, as long as they're not sad.
Right.
Sad is not the whole picture. There's lots of things that you could be feeling that you might not see, that you might not register to you as a mental health challenge, like anxiety. There's a lot that goes into it. So ask lots of questions. Yeah. Ask lots of questions. I know it can be scary because you don't want an awful answer, but ask a lot of questions.
I mean, perfectionism is a horrific scourge.
It's a drug, man. It's addictive.
If you have a child who's a true, because I was like a type A+ perfectionist, it will ultimately lead to a breakdown because we can't be perfect. And anyone who tries to be will ultimately fail. So I speak to a lot of moms of perfectionist girls who are young and already know, because my first grade teacher told my parents that they had a real problem because I would cry even if I got like a tiny little question wrong in class. Like it was so early.
That was not an admission that she did get. You did not get one wrong. You always told me.
Yes. Well, I convinced myself I didn't. So there are things you can do. If you admit early, like my daughter is a perfectionist, there are a lot of things you can do to try to take that pressure off and share stories of how failure is good. And I could have done a lot better job at that had I been more aware with some of my perfectionistic daughters. Yeah.
Your early toys, you described them as as low tech. Well, they certainly weren't zero tech, because the first time I picked up one of your puzzles and saw you using photoelectrics to know that I'm putting a piece back in place. So you've got cadmium sulfide photocells, and you've got integrated circuits in there. Who did that? Do you have a technical background, or is that all your design engineers?
Well, we knew how to assemble the puzzle, but no, didn't have a technical background. We had engineers that worked with us. That's actually that's a funny example, because I would say for the most part, our products got amazing reviews. Like, we had 100,000 5-star reviews on Amazon a year. That product is the one that we would hear about, because the way we engineered that one, if someone would put it like on the floor or something at night, they turned the light on, we got more people writing to the companies who were hearing farm animals in our kids' bedroom at night.
No, do you want to hear the funniest story? We had a woman who had an exorcism done in her home. She had because of this cow mooing, and she literally thought there was a ghost of a cow in her home. And no one would go in the cabinet, and they had a person come and do this whole, and it ended up being one of our puzzles.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
So we ended up having to put like a continuous change.
Not responsible for exorcisms. We had to print that on every product. We will not be held liable for
But in terms of changing things, right? It was, I mean, I don't know if you say it was a flaw, but it was.
Yeah, that was a flaw.
Okay, it was a flaw. See, my perfectionism, I can't even admit.
I mean, show of hands, who thinks that was a flaw?
So we ended up having to put an on-off switch on them. So apologies to all of you who had the first 20 years of them.
Funny.
But thank you for bringing it up.
I have a question before, just real quick. So you guys are amazing, first of all, but I'm curious, you're locked in the hotel room for 3 days.
Wow.
You must have come up with some other ideas. So I'm curious what ideas you threw out.
So many.
We're still going to do them.
We're free ideas.
They all related to children and education. We wanted to do something with enrichment programs that would be, providing other activities, like some things that you folks here are involved with. I saw a lot of the flyers out there. But programs for children that you're not getting through your school. Everything, we knew we wanted to do something with children.
One of the most exciting was a school that would ultimately become a whole bunch of schools that taught life skills and didn't teach that rote, didactic learning, and literally taught kids how to cook and how to negotiate and how to sell and how to forge relationships. And we thought that would be so revolutionary.
Yeah.
I still think, there need to be more schools like that.
How to balance a checkbook.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All those life skills,
Yeah.
right? My kids, when they got credit cards, they literally thought it was free money.
Sure. Right.
Like, this is amazing. I can just go.
Well,
like,
you don't learn about that in
taught
school.
those things.
No.
We do pay their bills, so it kind of is.
Right.
They're actually right.
That's funny.
I was curious, what were your favorite toys growing up, and did they inspire any of the toys you created?
Go ahead.
You can go.
Cardboard box. I'm kind of old school. Like, I grew up in Westport. My father was the principal at Reading Elementary. My mom was the guidance counselor in Norwalk, and we did everything outside. We were outside all the time. We made little forts and did things like that. So it was never anything that we would have to buy. It was always just things that we would do with our hands.
I love that. It's a great lesson that everything you do in life is fodder for what you do in your vocation, because I think everything I did in childhood ended up becoming a product of some sort. I love to craft. I love to make things. Like, I was always making things out of just random materials, mixed media. And I love, crafts, and we did so many craft lines. They were harder to succeed. But I would say my favorite category, based on what I did as a child, is pretend play. because I think that childhood is wonderful preparation for adulthood in a safe environment where you can try on different personas and learn who you are and take risks. And I love watching kids when they become a chef at a world-famous restaurant and create their own menus, or become a superhero and go into these imaginary worlds. Like, it's so satisfying to watch.
In my case, make coffee for their mom.
Yeah. I love that.
K-cups.
And then you just got to get them to do it on the real thing now.
Yes, right. Yep.
Hi, this has been so great. You've just been so open, and I also live in Westport and have 6 children, and I'm doing my own business, and sometimes I feel like, but I'm doing it on my own.
Don't you leave with her.
But sometimes I feel like there's always a million decisions to make, and as a one-man show, so to speak, like, how do you? Every time I want to make a decision, there's like 100 different things I could choose. So how do you know how, like, sort of the direction to go in, and how to just make the decision sometimes?
We talk about that all the time, and and even with people that we mentor and people who are still, work with our businesses still, it's so important to make those decisions, because a little bit, as I was alluding before, it's so easy to talk yourself out of things. And so we always say, have something that intuitively feels right. You're not just, recklessly, wildly picking a direction, but then pick a direction, go with it. You're allowed to change. Like, Melissa talks about mistakes. I always thought it was funny over the years, like at Melissa and Doug, when people would say, but 2 years ago you said, and I'm like, oh my God, you caught me. You're right. I learned something over the last year and feel it can be done better and differently now. Yeah. And so I think that we're always feeling like, take that step. We always say the one thing to try not to do is to get stuck. And we always say, if you're taking, even if it's a tiny little step forward, if you're moving, then you will get there. It's the same thing as walking, right? If you freeze the feet, then you're kind of going to be there a year later too. So we always say, make the decision. And it goes to really what Melissa said is, forgive yourself when it's wrong. Don't view that as because that is the thing that would make it hard to make the decision, is that you're possibly thinking, oh my gosh, what if I choose A when I should have chosen B? Yep. And I think choosing A or B is better than not choosing either one, because you will ultimately get there.
That's good. And the last thing I think too is there's no right or wrong. That's what you realize. Like, think there is this like golden answer. There's not. It's really just how you navigate the decision you make.
Correct.
So it's better to just close your eyes. I'm really big on, like, when I have a decision to make and I don't know the answer, I sit with it. And if no answer comes up, it means I'm not ready to make that decision. If I'm forced to make it, then I just go with the information I have and try to make the best decision. But a lot of times I don't make the decision for a month or two because nothing's coming up. And when it's right, my intuition always speaks to me. So if you have to make it in lieu of your intuition, make the best one you can. And then just be okay knowing that if the next decision involves backtracking, you're going to backtrack, and it's okay. There are always new decisions to make, and each one can take you down a really cool path if you're open to learning from the last one.
I was speaking earlier tonight with a person I've been fortunate to become friendly with over the last couple of years, who has developed a lot of amazing properties in this area, and I can be absolutely certain that each time this person makes decisions to develop a certain property, there's probably one down the street that possibly could have worked out better, but it's just making that decision, going with it. And as Melissa said, once you make that decision, turn it into the best that it could possibly be. I mean, if we went back and we could do that, and it would be interesting, I'd venture to guess, like, probably we made the right decision probably about 8% of the time. And it's more about once you get there, okay, this is what we're dealing with now based upon what we decided to do yesterday. This is where we're at. What are we going to do with it now?
I say keep moving, even if you move backward. As long as you move.
Gotta
Because
move.
you move backward a step, okay, next time you'll move forward a couple
Gotta
steps.
move. And as Melissa said, always got to be able to be honest with yourself because the clues will be there. We talk all the time about reading the clues. The clues will be there. You will pick up those clues, and then you have to be willing, as Melissa said, you have to be comfortable with, ooh, you know what, actually I think we should be going this way at this point. So it's being comfortable with the fact that it may not be a perfect decision.
Just today, we made probably 50 product decisions. I mean, everyone, like, theoretically a big one, the name of the product, what it's going to say on the back, and we're about just go with your gut, make it quickly, move on. We never think about it a second time because otherwise you would get lost in the vortex.
Paralyzed.
And never, it's all about the little micro steps. If you get focused on the horizon and the big goal, you know, I talk about living in the verb, not the noun. Like the doing, just keep doing the little things that ultimately get you. Don't look up. Don't think, oh my gosh, I need to be there. Because that's when you become paralyzed. If you focus on the little micro steps it takes to get to that big goal, that's easy, right? I can write my to-do list for today and figure out what I need to do today. If I start thinking about, we could never visit our warehouse. I could never visit our warehouses because they were, you know, whatever they were, 500,000 square feet of millions of products. And if I went in one of them, I became paralyzed. I literally could never I couldn't even really go to a company meeting that had like 1,000 people because I thought, oh my gosh, if we make bad choices and our ideas aren't good, like we're not going to be able to support all these people. So, you know, you just have to stay in the little. You know, for me, it was make the next great toy, and take all the blind. You know, take everything else out and just focus on making that one toy magical. Don't think about the ones that are before it. Don't think about the ones after. If I can make this one toy, a toy that a child wants to play with again and again and again, then everything will be okay.
Well, this has been so inspiring, and I have a feeling that every time you leave a talk like this, someone says, I need to go start a business tomorrow. Because,
Or
I mean,
not.
just so inspiring. So I want to thank you both for coming here.
Thank you.
And being so open and sharing all of your stories. And I want to thank you all for coming, too, and asking great questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Someone's going to win this, right?
Yes, yes. We've had a temporary member of the DCA staff for the last 24 hours. We're kind of sad to see him go, but we are going to pick a name. And I just want to thank you guys. What a really positive message and really inspiring evening. So thank you very much. And why don't I have Essie? Do you want to?
Oh, sure.
Oh, how fun.
It's got to be fair.
And-
It's got to be fair.
Make a decision.
It's Jack.
Make
You
a
know it. It's
decision.
Jack. Don't say Jack.
Want me to read it?
Yeah, sure.
Tracy Mawa?
Tracy Mara. Yeah.
Mara.
Tracy, yeah.
There you go. Congratulations.
You have a new friend.
Wait, can we kiss it? We have to kiss it goodbye.
Just when you thought you'd cleaned out that playroom, right, Tracy? Well, we thank all of you for coming. Our next event with Ira Joe Fisher is on April 20th, the evening of April 20th. So, you know, he's a broadcaster, a poet, a professor, so I think it's going to be another great evening. We'd love to have you join us for that as well. So thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you, everyone.
Before there was professional football, fast food restaurants, and megastores, there was a John M. Glover agent at the doorstep of Connecticut's businesses and homes, shaking their clients' hands with a comforting smile. Today, on their 100th anniversary, John M. Glover has grown to have served thousands of clients the old-fashioned American way. Join us in the movement to keep business personal. Join us in the celebration of tradition and trust. At John M. Glover, we've got you covered. Before there was professional football, fast food restaurants, and megastores, there was a John M. Glover agent at the doorstep of Connecticut's businesses and homes, shaking their clients' hands with a comforting smile. Today, on their 100th anniversary, John M. Glover has grown to have served thousands of clients the old-fashioned American way. Join us in the movement to keep business personal. Join us in the celebration of tradition and trust. At John M. Glover, we've got you covered.